Howdy everyone. So, the other day, the FedEx guy dropped off a package in my front porch, totally unannounced and unexpected, and it contained this, the TTArtisan 50mm f0.95 lens for APS-C cameras in Sony E-mount, although it's also available for the vast majority of other mirrorless camera systems. Well, I might as well review it for you all, mightn't I? I later found out it was TTArtisan themselves, not one of their distributors, who sent me the lens, so I'd like to say thank you for that, although as usual, this is a totally independent review. A 50mm f0.95 lens on an APS-C camera is great for portrait and subject photography. Something you might also be interested to know is that the lens works quite well on full frame. I'm shooting it here on a full-frame Sony a7R III. Here is the full-frame image at f0.95 and here's another at f4, where you can barely see any vignetting at all. So, for its price of about $220 you're getting quite a lot of lens here, although of course only if its image quality is acceptable. I don't think we're expecting fireworks today. But anyway, let's look at its build quality first. The lens's metallic build quality feels nice and tough, with a distinctive black and silver finish to it. It's small, but it has a fair bit of weight to it due to being so packed with glass. The first obvious compromise is that this is of course a fully manual lens. The manual focus ring turns nice and smoothly, with a decent amount of precision, although a little bit more of a turning circle wouldn't have gone amiss. Here you can see the lens clearly exhibiting some focus breathing, zooming in and out as you change focus. Then on the top you get an aperture control ring. It has nice little clicks to it at various intervals, although those f-stops aren't placed very evenly. My copy of the lens came with a screw-on cap. God, I hate those things. There's also no weather sealing to be spoken of here. Its front filter size is 58mm wide. Overall, it's a dead simple little lens, as simple as they come, but still pretty tough and perfectly usable. Alright, let's take a look at image quality. I'm testing it on a Sony a5100 camera here with its 24MP APS-C sized sensor. No in-camera corrections are available with this lens. At f0.95, there's some sharpness here, but on contrasting edges, it's clouded over by ghosting and some colour fringing. Corner image quality is very blurry. f1.4 looks about the same in the corners. Back in the middle, the image is still a little soft, but contrast is much higher. Stop down to f2 and image quality jumps up to becoming excellent in the middle. Image corners are still very poor, unfortunately. Stop down to f2.8 and clarity is slightly increasing in the corners now. Stop down to f4 for a big increase in resolution in those corners, and at f5.6 they look excellent. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, but at f16 softness creeps in due to the effects of diffraction. Overall, well, this is quite a low quality lens when it comes to sharpness and contrast, especially at its brightest apertures. However, it will perform a bit better when you're shooting it at infinity and not at normal distances. Alright, let's take a look at vignetting and distortion now on an APS-C camera. The lens projects a little barrel distortion, but it's nothing too disturbing. At f0.95, vignetting is actually very low already. This will be because of that almost full frame coverage we saw earlier. The lens's minimum focus distance of 50cm is slightly further than average for a 50mm optic. Close-up image quality is dreadfully ghostly at f0.95. At f1.4 things are only a little better. However, stop down to f2 for a lot more contrast there, and at f2.8, close-up image quality becomes excellent. Let's see how the lens works against bright lights now. The lens displays a lot more flaring than average here. Keep it away from bright lights. And while we're working in the dark, let's take a look at chroma levels. That chroma smearing is pretty wild. Well, what you can see through the corner softness anyway, that is. At f1.4, f2 and at f2.8, it gradually gets tamed down. Let's zoom out and take a look at the sunstars now. They begin to really emerge at f5.6, getting more defined at f8 and f11, as you can see. Now let's take a look at the quality of this lens's bokeh. At f0.95, the lens can get you some deeply out of focus backgrounds. Generally, they look averagely smooth, although in the middle distance, bright points of light do have a green outline to them, not to mention a seemingly ubiquitous cat's eye shape at the brightest aperture. And finally, related to bokeh comes longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f0.95, the close-up softness is almost overwhelming here, so you can't really see much of anything. At f1.4, it's the same problem. Stop down to f2 for some noticeable colour fringing on bokeh highlights though, and at f2.8 it's reduced, and at f4, virtually gone. Overall, well, there's no beating around the bush here. This is not a high-performance lens by any stretch of the imagination, and manually focusing it can be tricky. It's basically a super cheap way for you to get yourself down to f0.95 for pictures with deeply out of focus backgrounds, which do, admittedly, look quite nice if you don't care too much about sharpness. Oh, you're still there. Let me take a moment to say thank you to all my Patreon supporters who make these videos possible. I love putting them together for you all, but they certainly do take a lot of time and some expense as well. If you haven't already, check out my Patreon page down in the description below, where supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content just for them. Ciao for now.